The story of 10-year-old Sara Sharif begins in a quiet British town but unravels into one of the most shocking and heartbreaking child abuse cases in recent UK history, a case that exposed failures of a system meant to protect the most vulnerable. Sara was born in the United Kingdom to Irfan Sharif and Olga Sharif, a Polish national. For most of her early childhood, she lived a normal life, described by those who knew her as bright, curious, and kind. But after her parents divorced, her life took a dark and tragic turn. In 2019, the family court granted shared custody between Irfan and Olga. However, by 2021, Irfan had taken full custody of Sara and her younger siblings. Olga's contact with her daughter became limited, and eventually, all communication was cut off. From that moment onward, no one outside Irfan's home truly knew what Sara was enduring. The small Surrey town of Woking, known for its quiet suburban streets, became the setting of an unimaginable horror. On August 10, 2023, police were called to a semi-detached house after a 999 call was made by Irfan Sharif from Pakistan, informing authorities that his daughter had died at home. When emergency responders arrived, they found Sara lying on her bed, pale, bruised, and lifeless. Her body showed clear signs of prolonged abuse, multiple healed fractures, old bruises, and fresh injuries that told a story of months of relentless torture. The post-mortem revealed that she had suffered multiple and extensive injuries over a sustained period. It was a discovery that horrified the nation and quickly drew international attention. By the time police reached the home, Irfan, his partner Baynash Batul, and his brother Faisal Malik had already fled the UK. They boarded a flight to Pakistan just one day before Sara's body was discovered, taking the remaining 5 children with them. What followed was an international manhunt that spanned continents. The trio disappeared into the Pakistani city of Jhelum, hiding among relatives while media coverage exploded across the UK. The British press dubbed it the Woking tragedy, and global outlets from BBC to CNN began covering the story. Public outrage grew with each passing day as horrifying details emerged about the conditions Sara had been living under. Neighbors recalled seeing the children rarely, sometimes catching glimpses of Sara looking withdrawn or injured. One neighbor claimed she had noticed bruises on Sara's face weeks before her death but assumed it might have been an accident. Another said the children were homeschooled and kept isolated from the outside world, creating an environment where the abuse could continue unchecked. In Pakistan, police pressure intensified as British authorities worked with Interpol to locate and extradite the suspects. Irfan, Baynash, and Faisal initially went into hiding, protected by relatives and sympathizers who claimed they were being framed. But after weeks of public pressure and international coordination, the trio surfaced in early September 2023. They gave a brief interview to a Pakistani news channel where Baynash, veiled in a headscarf, denied harming Sara and claimed her death was an accident. Yet their words only deepened suspicion. In the interview, Baynash said they were willing to cooperate with UK authorities, but still refused to return voluntarily. Soon after, Pakistani police arrested them in Jhelum following a dramatic raid, handing them over to British officers in an extradition process that drew massive media coverage. When they arrived back in the UK, they were immediately taken into custody and charged with the murder of Sara Sharif and causing or allowing the death of a child. The news of their arrest brought some relief to a nation that had followed the story with shock and grief, but it was just the beginning of a long and emotional legal battle. As court proceedings began, the details of Sara's final months came to light, painting a horrifying picture of neglect and cruelty. Prosecutors described how the 10-year-old had been subjected to discipline that escalated into brutal beatings. Evidence showed that Sara had suffered multiple rib fractures, facial injuries, and internal trauma consistent with repeated physical assault. The home environment was described as chaotic and violent. The siblings told investigators that their stepmother, Baynash Batul, often beat Sara with objects, slapped her, and made her stand for hours as punishment. Her father, Irfan, was said to have been aware of the abuse but did nothing to stop it, while Faisal Malik allegedly participated in some of the assaults. The prosecution presented harrowing forensic photographs, diary entries, and witness statements that painted the three adults as controlling and manipulative, creating an atmosphere of fear and silence in the household. During the hearings, Sara's mother, Olga, appeared in court, her face filled with pain as she listened to the details of what her daughter had endured. In her statement, she said she had fought for years to get access to Sara, writing letters and contacting social services when her daughter stopped responding to calls. Olga said she had warned authorities that something was wrong, but no one acted quickly enough. This revelation led to widespread criticism of the UK's child protection system. Reporters and members of parliament questioned how such extensive abuse could go unnoticed for so long, and whether the social services in Woking had failed to intervene despite warning signs. The trial exposed systemic failures, with emails and case notes showing that social workers had made home visits but failed to identify the severity of Sara's condition. The defense tried to argue that Sara's death was accidental, that she had fallen down the stairs, but the post-mortem evidence destroyed that claim. Medical experts testified that her injuries could only have been caused by repeated blunt force trauma. The timeline of events was damning. The abuse had been going on for months, and in the final days before her death, Sara had been severely beaten. Text messages recovered from Irfan's phone showed that he had been aware of the violence yet chose to cover it up rather than seek help. There were also audio recordings recovered from inside the home, apparently taken by a hidden device, where the sounds of shouting, crying, and beatings could be heard. The prosecution described this as a house of horror where Sara was trapped with no way to escape. As the trial unfolded, emotional testimony from witnesses left the courtroom silent. Sara's school teachers testified about her sudden withdrawal from classes in 2021 when Irfan decided to homeschool her, cutting her off from all external contact. They recalled her once cheerful personality fading in the months before she was removed from school. Olga wept as she described her final memory of Sara, a video call in which the child looked thin, frightened, and kept glancing nervously off camera as if someone was watching her. That call would be the last time mother and daughter spoke. When the defense tried to shift blame or question Olga's parenting, the judge intervened, reminding the court that the central issue was the monstrous cruelty inflicted upon a defenseless child. The evidence was overwhelming, and the jury found Sara Sharif, Baynash Batul, and Faisal Malik guilty of murder and child cruelty. The sentencing hearing drew huge crowds outside the Old Bailey in London. Protesters held banners demanding justice for Sara, while reporters broadcast live updates to millions following the case online. When the judge delivered the sentence, life imprisonment for all three, he called the crime a betrayal of the most sacred duty of a parent, to protect their child. He described their actions as inhuman, calculated, and sustained over time. As the verdict was read, Olga sat silently, tears streaming down her face, holding a small photograph of Sara smiling in her school uniform. The aftermath of the case triggered national soul-searching across the UK. The local council in Woking issued a public apology for its failures to safeguard Sara. The Department for Education ordered an independent review into child protection practices in Surrey County, citing the case as an example of how bureaucracy can cost lives. On social media, the hashtag #JusticeForSara trended for weeks, as people from around the world expressed outrage, grief, and support for Olga. The story appeared on Reddit's r/truecrime and r/UK news forums, where thousands discussed the horrific details and how such a tragedy could have been prevented. Psychologists and child advocates joined the conversation, emphasizing the importance of vigilance when children suddenly disappear from schools or neighborhoods. Sara's story became more than just a murder case, it became a symbol of what happens when silence and negligence meet cruelty. In the years that followed, lawmakers pushed for new measures to ensure children withdrawn from schools receive regular welfare checks, and social service departments across England underwent training to spot early signs of abuse. Olga Sharif continued to campaign for child protection reform, appearing on BBC and Sky News, saying she wanted no other parent to suffer what she had endured. "I can't bring my daughter back," she said in one interview, "but maybe her story can save someone else." The case also changed how law enforcement handles international fugitives. The swift cooperation between UK and Pakistani authorities set a precedent for cross-border investigations in child abuse and homicide cases. The Pakistani court's decision to extradite the suspects was praised by both governments as an example of how justice can prevail even across continents. Even after sentencing, the story of Sara Sharif continues to haunt the British conscience. Each new report or documentary revisiting the case reignites the question, how did a child in plain sight fall through every safety net? Her former schoolmates placed flowers outside her old school gates, where a small plaque now reads, "In memory of Sara, loved, missed, never forgotten." It's a simple message, but one that carries immense weight. Sara's story forces society to confront uncomfortable truths about abuse, denial, and the collective responsibility to protect children. In the end, the Sara Sharif case is not only a tale of crime but a warning, a reminder that evil can thrive behind closed doors when no one is watching, and that justice, though delayed, must never be denied. It stands as one of the most painful and unforgettable cases in recent UK history, its echoes continuing to inspire change long after the verdict was read.